Welcome to Hoystory On Air podcast video thing, season 2, episode 8. I think it's episode 8. Single subject podcast today, as can probably be expected. The Alex Pretty, I'm not sure how you characterize it. Death, murder, tragedy, definitely. In Minneapolis, it's an ugly situation. I had a friend of mine, Dave Congleton, who has a radio show over in San Luis Obispo on 920 KVUC AM, which I will be appearing on later today, 4 p.m. Pacific time. He sent me an email, asked me, what my thoughts on this were. I've got a lot, so we'll go over that here. If you've got questions or whatnot, want to call in to Dave's show, I'll have a link at the very end of the podcast here for you to do that. First off, I think the best kind of analysis of what happened over the weekend was Wall Street Journal. I'll link to this in the show notes. The show note links are not as extensive as I usually have. A lot of this stuff you can Google and find yourself. But the Wall Street Journal link as of yesterday still worked even if you didn't have a subscription. So I'd encourage you to go over there, take a look at it, and you can kind of take your own conclusions from this. It's not pretty, and I apologize for the pun. It's just wasn't intentional. The situation's bad in Minneapolis. Got this video here, and I'm wearing the headphones today, so I don't have to worry about muting and unmuting things. We'll see how that works in the final product. Let me know what you prefer or if you don't care. But there's one video that I did want to show you. It is cut short. It's a minute and something long. And it shows the view of what happened from, if you look in this picture, somebody's in that white vehicle. And this is someone filming from the inside of that vehicle right in front of which this is all taking place. So take a look.
Whoa! Holy shit! Oh my God!
Apologies for the expletives there. Understandable, though. It's tough to see what went on. From everything I've seen, it looks like a protester with a whistle who'd kind of been in the middle of the street was shoved over the edge of a snowbank by a Customs and Border Patrol, I believe it's Customs and Border Patrol officer. None of this is clear yet, and we're days later now. And then Alex Pretty goes to help. He inserts himself between law enforcement and this woman that I think the best analysis of this, and I'll go over it in a couple minutes here, was Amy Swearer, and I'll show you what she had to say. But the thing that disturbed me at the time and disturbed a lot of people is the absolute shamelessness of a lot of people in the administration. They did this with the Renee Good shooting a couple weeks ago, and I encourage, and what contributed to that shooting also kind of contributed to this shooting. So I'd encourage you, if you did not watch that, go back and watch the clip, which, where it's entitled "Ice Watch Got Renee Good Killed," because I think Ice Watch had a hand in getting Alex Pretty killed too. It's just, I think that's the truth of it. But the administration, who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes or them? And some people seem willing to believe them. The number of people that applies to, I think, is steadily going down, because it's just it takes a special kind of not caring how you are perceived by just normal people to try and shovel this garbage that they were trying to shovel in the immediate aftermath of this. We'll start with, I believe it's Gregory Bovino. Yes, Gregory Bovino of he's at large of Customs and Border Patrol. After this little performance here, it looks like he's been sent back to the El Centro sector, where he was pulled from, in order to quietly retire. But this is insane.
The suspect also had 2 loaded magazines and no accessible ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, if he wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement, he could have. There was plenty of opportunities for him to step back while they went after this woman, pull his gun, and start drilling them. And he didn't. You got to be in. I mean, this is almost. I'm practically speechless. This doesn't represent reality in the slightest. If he wanted to do that, he could have. There would be wounded and dead Border Patrol and ICE agents if he had wanted to do that. Okay? There's every indication that he was filming with his phone. Fine. That is perfectly legal. I come from a journalism background. I worked in newspapers for 15 years. I encourage people to use their phones, use a camera, whatever they've got, and record police interactions. Don't get in their way. Stand back. Don't get involved. But go for it. I encourage you to do that. That is perfectly legal. It's protected by the First Amendment. Him carrying a gun to this protest was protected by the Second Amendment. Is that necessarily a good idea? Personally, if I were out at these protests, because, I'm not one of these ICE Watch people, but if I were acting as a citizen journalist, not getting involved, not getting between, not, impeding the police, not getting in their way, not trying to de-arrest or shield other individuals, I'd probably carry a gun too, because frankly, you got a bunch of nuts there in Minnesota who have these secret signal chats, and they're, are you ICE? Are you ICE? Prove you're not ICE. And they get a little bit crazy. I don't think, that wasn't the situation here at this moment with Alex Pretty, but what this Bovino guy is describing is crazy, absolutely nuts. And it didn't get better. Here is Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, most famously known for killing a puppy because she couldn't train the thing right. Here's Kristi. Go, Kristi. Prove yourself to be an absolute idiot as well.
I do want to address the tragic situation that we saw in Minneapolis today that unfolded on the streets. It occurred with DHS law enforcement as they carried out their lawful duties to keep Americans safe in the threat of criminal illegal aliens in this country. At 9:05 a.m., Central Time, the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officials and officers were conducting targeted operations in Minneapolis against an illegal alien whose criminal history included domestic assault with intentionally inflicting bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. About hundreds of protesters then showed up at the scene. They began to obstruct and to assault law enforcement officers. We saw objects being thrown at them, including ice and other objects, and a rampant assault began, and even an HSI officer agent's finger was bitten off. Crowd control measures were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene. And once again, I want to remind everybody that this situation and this tragedy did not have to happen.
Well, the last part's right. The tragedy did not have to happen. And there's plenty of blame to go around on all sides. But this, again, Bolshevik storytelling. I mean, I use that phrase because my dad was a high school history teacher. And at the time, it seems not the case so much anymore in a lot of public high schools. You didn't cuss. And so the way of calling BS was to label something Bolshevik storytelling. And that seems very apropos here because it's so similar. If he had gone there to do maximum damage, ICE agents, Border Patrol agents would be dead. Dead. I mean, there's no question about it. He had the firepower to do that. I don't know how well trained he was. I'm not sure, exactly what Minnesota's requirements on training are. I don't know how often he went out to practice. But with what he had, and honestly, again, if he'd stepped back while they were pushing this woman that he was with, he could have taken several of them out. There'd be several of them in the hospital. It's obvious that wasn't what he was doing. Embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Then we get Kash Patel, our FBI director, who, the Trump administration probably is the most pro-Second Amendment administration that we've had in a long, long time. Perhaps, ever since they started doing gun control in like the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s. Before that, you could say everyone was, pro-gun rights because no one thought to infringe on the Second Amendment. So having said that, it's not like Firearms Policy Coalition or the Second Amendment Foundation or Gun Owners of America or the various state groups are 100% happy with what the Department of Justice has been doing. Definitely better than the Biden administration, definitely better than any Democratic administration we've had, and some Republican administrations, but it's not like they are in lockstep with gun rights groups. So Kash Patel goes on Fox News and Maria Bartiromo's, I think this was the Sunday Morning Futures show, and sticks his foot in it. Let's take a listen.
As Christy said, you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence. We will, of course, always protect your First Amendment speech. And if you peacefully protest, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you have seen a trend here, not just in Minnesota, but across the country, in these protests turning into violent scenarios and people attacking law enforcement. That's when you go over the line, and that's when law enforcement steps in.
Yeah, but there's nothing illegal in Minnesota with bringing a gun to a protest to defend yourself. There's zero illegal. That's not illegal. And this has been made a point time and time again. Exercising your Second Amendment right does not mean you lose your First Amendment rights to free speech. Again, the First Amendment right is to peaceably assemble. So you can assemble, it's got to be peaceably for it to be constitutional and legal. Some of this stuff obviously isn't. In the last video, Christine mentioned, some agent got his finger bitten off. It looked like it was bitten off at the last knuckle. People are being egged on. It's. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I think Patel walked this back later. But this kind of urge to, oh no, this guy was in the wrong. He wasn't. He was not in the wrong until he got in between the cops and this woman. I've said this before, and this is something I mentioned to Dave Congleton. And this is something that you learn when you take a CCW class, carry concealed weapon class. At least here in California, I'm sure it's the same anywhere else you take a class. It's good common sense. It's bad enough inserting yourself into a volatile situation where Border Patrol or cops or whatever are trying to arrest someone or do their job or get from place A to place B, and it's not a good idea to impede them. It's an even worse idea to do that and be armed. One of the things they talk about in CCW, classes is what to do if you're pulled over for speeding or a broken tail light, or maybe they think you're drunk. But, if they pull you over and you're carrying, that can be a very dangerous situation for the police. You do not want to make it worse by doing furtive movements, this, that, and the other. Not a good idea. Having said that, do you have the right to show up at a protest in Minneapolis with a concealed weapon? Yes, you do. It's been mentioned a couple times he didn't have ID on him. Well, if you were going to prosecute him, for shooting the cops, which he didn't do, that's something you could, goes to state of mind. Because the reason why, I suspect this is pretty obvious, the reason why he didn't have ID on him is because the ICE Watch things say, don't take your ID out there with you. Makes it more difficult for the cops to identify you, tell whether you're legal or illegal, ties them up so they can't go about doing what they are assigned to do, which is arrest, and help deport illegal immigrants. So that's, goes something to state of mind, but it's irrelevant to what happened this past weekend. Over on ABC's This Week, Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, is invited to get out of his lane, gets out of his lane, and demonstrates that he don't know squat. So let's take a look at, listen to our Treasury Secretary.
Before you go, I know this is not your lane, but I got to ask you about what's happened in Minneapolis. As a member of the Trump cabinet, are you concerned to see another American citizen ends up dead, shot by federal law enforcement?
Jonathan, it's a tragedy when anyone dies, but I can tell you the situation on the ground there is being stirred up by Governor Walz. I was out there 2 weeks ago. Governor Walz declined to provide a security detail for me to go into the Minnesota Capitol with the state police. So he is fomenting He is fomenting chaos because there is substantial waste, fraud, and abuse. My job as Treasury Secretary is to investigate that. And I think that this chaos that's going out there, and again, I am sorry that this gentleman is dead, but he did bring.
And this is where he should have stopped. He should have stopped like 2 seconds before this. Yes, everything up to this point, yes, you were correct. The rest of the you got a big fraud problem in Minnesota. That's probably a big reason why Walz is not running for re-election. Maybe he should have kept his powder dry on that for a couple more weeks, and the Trump administration would have bailed him out, because that's effectively what they're doing. And so Bessent gets this far. It's like, stop. Does he stop? No, he does not stop.
A 9mm semi-automatic weapon with 2 cartridges to what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. I think that there are a lot of paid agitators.
So that's another thing. You can tell he's ignorant, because what's a cartridge? A cartridge is a single bullet with a shell. That's definitionally, that's a cartridge. It's got the bullet, it's got the gunpowder, it's got the primer, it's got the case. That's a cartridge. He had 2 spare magazines, which is perfectly fine. I've heard some people, coming online saying that's carrying a spare magazine is very rare. People, generally people who don't carry a spare magazine. I'm not sure how true that is. I have always carried 1 spare magazine, mainly because I don't have, a gun that, carries as many bullets as this guy had here in California. I think those were 15-round magazines that he was carrying. That's great. But it's not that uncommon. You can go on websites, and there's websites for to purchase holsters, and they always have special either a magazine or either a holster that holds the gun and a magazine, or 2 magazines, or they'll have a separate kind of holster for just the magazines, so you can have the gun on one side of your body and the magazines on the other. This is not uncommon, not by a long shot. So Secretary Bessent, stay in your lane. Just don't accept the invitation to stray out of it. Then you had this Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. He generally has not impressed me. He is a very MAGA guy, and I've said this before. It seems like if you feel like Robert Downey Jr.'s character in Tropic Thunder, slightly paraphrased or taken in a different way, never go full MAGA, because it's like your IQ just drops. It's like you're required to say stuff that I don't think he's stupid, but he sounds stupid when he says it. So Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, Senator from Oklahoma. Oklahomans, you can probably do better. You probably won't, but you could do better.
About it. Today, there's a report of an ICE officer getting his finger bit off, and then unfortunately, a deranged individual that came in to cause max damage with a loaded pistol with an extra mag that was completely loaded, was shot and killed. How much more does this got to go on before the Democrat leaders there take responsibility for their words?
Fair enough. As far as and I'll get to that too, because this is only happening in Minnesota. These shootings, this violence, and a lot of it is because the elected officials there are fomenting it. They are, they're sitting there with just pouring hot air out into the atmosphere, and and getting people riled up, and this is what's happening. Are these agents behaving well or properly? No. Not all of them, not all the time, I feel like it's getting worse. The problem is it's a tough job to start with, and it's not made easier when people are trying to block you, trying to get you to overreact. It'd be nice if every ICE officer, every Border Patrol agent was a great cop who could take the abuse and still execute their job with honor, following all the rules, that sort of stuff. But they're human too. And this doesn't help. I mentioned earlier, I think that kind of the best takes on this have been from Amy Swearer. She is at Advancing American Freedom. She used to be at the Heritage Foundation, left that after the whole Tucker Carlson's the greatest and he's our friend, and I'll never disown him, even as he goes full anti-Semitic and crazy guy stuff. So she left along with a whole lot of other people. She is now at Advancing American Freedom group. And this is in response to a lawyer from the Institute of Justice. And I generally support the Institute for Justice. They do good work. But he was trying to draw a parallel between collective knowledge of the police, which is required for, I apologize, people, I've got a cat problem. No, Roscoe, you need to go away. He was trying to draw a connection between what's called collective knowledge. So cops are required when they are getting a warrant for your arrest or a search warrant. They have kind of collective knowledge. So what each cop knows has to kind of be put into the pot when applying for those warrants. Obviously, that is not a situation that is where you're under pressure that only takes a few seconds. But he was trying to make this connection between, we require collective knowledge there. Why don't we require collective knowledge in this situation that happened in Minnesota? She responds, respectfully, cops don't have an interconnected hive mind. You're assuming the agents who fired knew who had taken the gun or when. From what I can tell, the two agents who fired shots were not the same agent who took the gun away. I think this is true. The first agent shot within several seconds of the third agent removing Preddy's gun from its holster. And the second agent opened fire after everyone scattered in response to the first agent. So right now, it's unclear to me what stimuli the first officer was responding to when he fired. Several scenarios are possible, including the negligent discharge by the third agent theory, which at this point hasn't been proved or disproved. And that's another thing. I mean, I've seen all the videos. It is really tough to see like who fired the first shot, if there was a negligent discharge and someone, just accidentally pulled the trigger and then, somebody's firing, I better fire too. It's really tough to figure out. She says, did the first agent see the empty holster on Preddy's back, but not know in the chaotic scrum who took it? Then react to a negligent discharge, which he mistakenly, but perhaps reasonably believed Preddy was firing the now missing gun? Possible. Did he just see a hand remove the gun from the holster and then, again, mistakenly, but perhaps reasonably, interpret something in Preddy's hand to be that gun while the other officers are shouting gun? Did he completely reasonably just think, screw it, I'm tired of this shit, and shoot him? She says, truly, I have no idea. I don't either. I mean, all of these things, this is where it gets dangerous because you have introduced a firearm to a volatile situation. You need to be very, very careful if you are going to choose to carry a firearm around, especially at a protest, and it's crazy to do it when you're going to get involved, get in between, cops trying to arrest someone, or you gotta stay, it's dangerous. And he found out. And again, there's more from Amy, but this is it says, she says it's impossible to tell from what the first agent was thinking, seeing, and actually perceiving in real time. Similarly, the second agent very plausibly just heard another agent shout "gun," realized Agent 1 had fired, and reacted instinctively to Agent 1's perception of the threat. Maybe he mistakenly, but perhaps reasonably, thought that the gunshots had come from Preddy. Maybe he had no idea at all that Preddy had ever been armed and just thought, screw it, I'll finish the job. No idea. She says this is very different from the Renee Good shooting in so many practical senses. This isn't one officer reacting directly to one other person's actions where we only have to analyze how he reasonably perceived the car in front of him. Here we have a chaotic scrum involving multiple moving parts, multiple officers taking multiple actions over the course of mere seconds that may or may not have been perceived in part or in whole by any other officer who might reasonably or unreasonably have interpreted any whole or partial perception in a variety of ways. There are so many scenarios in which multiple officers could have been reacting to mistaken but reasonable interpretations of the moving parts. In other words, that the shooting is tragic and perhaps even a bad shoot in the sense that Preddy was not actually an imminent threat, but nonetheless justified by subjective perceptions that were reasonable but wrong. This is true. So it may be a bad shoot, but again, if you're carrying a gun, you have to be super extra careful. A few years ago, back when it was still legal here in California, I was riding on the trolley in San Diego. I was armed. Apparently a transit cop didn't like, and I'm not sure what, I'm not sure what prompted this at all, but a transit cop didn't like what this black kid, who's probably early 20s, was doing or had said, or, I think like, well, I have a ticket. But he, calls for backup. And pretty soon, not 10 feet from me, are 10 transit cops who are, getting on and gathering from station to station as we pass through, telling this guy to get off. Again, I'm not sure what, he had a ticket. He was waving a ticket. They didn't say he didn't have a ticket. They didn't say that's, not a real ticket, or, that's expired or whatnot. But there's no way I'm inserting myself in that situation. I mean, they got tasers. I don't even think they had firearms. It's like, and they're going after this kid. And it's like, well, I'm the only person on here with a firearm. You don't get involved. If she's your friend, if you're going to carry the gun, you kind of have heightened responsibilities. Well, you do have heightened responsibilities. The cops have heightened responsibilities too. Do they always live up to them? No. But you got to be very, very careful about inserting yourself in the situation. Swearer continues, if it's difficult to see how any agent could have reasonably but mistakenly interpreted a serious threat, it's because we have the luxury of playing Monday morning quarterback and analyzing multiple camera angles of slow motion frame-by-frame footage from our office desks, without 6 other people getting in our way or shrilling whistles in our ears while filming us. And she adds some caveats, and I think these are all very important caveats. I think they're all probably right on. She says, I'll add to this that all of the above can be true while at the same time believing that the lady blowing the whistle was one of the primary instigators. And the damn whistle no doubt added to the chaos, which is one of the reasons local officials should stop encouraging that nonsense. 2, the ICE agent who shoved the lady to the ground was probably on a line. Yeah, I think he probably was. I don't think that was necessary. Alex Preddy was, in the relevant moments, obviously more interested in helping whistle lady than assaulting officers. I think that's true as well. Hold on, we have a cat problem. Part of Pretty's reactions while on the ground may have stemmed from being pepper sprayed in his face, which no doubt can cause unconscious reactions of wanting to free your hands, to reach for your face, and ICE agents who routinely deal in unruly physical encounters with protesters may not have immediately interpreted Pretty's actions through the lens that we might in our office chairs. I'll say this as well. So Pretty's in this scrum with the agents. The back of his shirt and jacket come up, revealing his gun. It is a natural reaction, I think, for most concealed carriers, most people who carry a gun, most cops, that if you feel someone reaching for your gun in its holster, that you reach to and try and trap it so it's not pulled, so it's not used against you. That's not something you want to do when you're dealing with cops. But in a chaotic situation, if you all of a sudden feel somebody tugging at your gun, I think it's a natural reaction to reach back there, not necessarily to draw it, but to trap it so it is not drawn by anyone. That's kind of where I'll go with that. Philip Klein, who's editor over at our National Review Online, says, he said, notes, interestingly, when Pretty, no one's spelling his name right, it's crazy, is lying dead, one agent is frantically searching his body and yells, "Where's the gun?" suggesting confusion over whether he had been disarmed. This seems to be a key element of the tragic mistake. Yes, yeah, exactly. You've got half a dozen guys over there, jumping on him, right or wrong, probably mostly wrong, but you can't be in that situation. If you've got a firearm, you cannot put yourself in that situation. In the hours that followed, strange new respect for the Second Amendment. It's amazing how this is all political. I will say this. I don't have the Twitter/X posts here on my slideshow, but almost without exception, Second Amendment rights groups, as the Trump administration was out there sticking its foot in its mouth on this case, gun rights groups were consistent. He had the right to carry the gun. He had the right to be at the protest with the gun. He had a license. He was a legal gun owner. The gun was legal. There was nothing wrong with what he did. They were consistent. Who wasn't consistent were the gun control people. Giffords organization. Alex Pretty has been identified as the man shot and killed by federal agents in Minnesota this morning. Our hearts are with his family, friends, and the Minnesota community as people everywhere grieve this unjustifiable act of violence. Alex was a 37-year-old ICU nurse who served veterans at the VA hospital and cared deeply about his patients. He was a lawful gun owner who was protesting in his community when the agents detained, attacked, and then fatally shot him. He had joined protests following the killing of fellow Minnesotan Renee Nicole Good earlier this month. He had the right to be there and should still be alive. This is all right. This is true. Giffords doesn't believe this. They don't believe any of it. In fact, if you go to their website, under the Protecting Democracy Guns in Public header, the presence of guns at protests and demonstrations not only chills the exercise of our fundamental freedoms, such as freedom of speech and assembly, it also makes people more likely to be shot. In large gatherings of people, especially when emotions and tensions flare, the risk of violence increases when people are armed. A 2021 study found that demonstrations involving at least one armed individual turn violent or destructive 16% of the time, and armed demonstrations are nearly 6 times as likely to turn violent or destructive compared to unarmed demonstrations. The study also found that armed protests account for less than 2% of the total number of demonstrations in the U.S., yet they account for 10% of all violent or destructive demonstrations. Uh, they want what Alex Priddy was doing to be illegal in multiple ways. Because it's not just that they don't want him carrying, and this is a screenshot from a brief they filed in an appellate case where gun rights groups are suing, so no, we should be able to carry at protests. They wrote, in practice, the promise of First Amendment rights affords little insurance against hostile listeners bearing arms. When the police are literally too afraid of armed protesters to stop a melee, the First Amendment values are diminished, the discussion is supplanted by disorder and even death. Okay, that is Gifford's position. Okay? 2 days later, after they, he was exercising his Second Amendment rights and we shouldn't do this, Giffords comes out in support of assault rifle ban. And first it's assault rifles, and the second paragraph is it's sale of assault weapons. Alex Priddy's gun qualified, according to what Giffords, gun control laws that Giffords presses for in state legislatures across the country, as an assault weapon. The magazines that he was carrying, all of them had carried more than 10 rounds. The gun itself had a threaded barrel, so you could thread on a suppressor. That is also a feature of an assault weapon, according to Giffords. Okay? If Giffords had their way, I'm not sure this would have been a justified shooting because the politics are the same as Giffords, but they encourage this sort of thing. He would have been illegally carrying if Giffords had their way. Then we had Gavin Newsom. This is rich. This is rich. The Trump administration does not believe in the Second Amendment. Good to know. So and this isn't so they're just like me kind of realization. Here's a clip from a few years ago, because the other thing is, here in California, the gun Priddy carry, illegal as all get out. California passed a law 3 years ago, says it's illegal to carry at a public demonstration. It's illegal to carry a lot of places now in California. My CCW is not nearly as useful to me today as it was when I first got it over 10 years ago. When I first got it, I carried on school grounds because as a CCW holder, I could. No one ever. That's the other thing. They banned carry by CCW owners on school grounds for the first time about 8-9 years ago. And how many concealed carry owners had ever had a negligent discharge or shot someone on school grounds in the 50 or 60 plus years that had been illegal? None. Not a one. But here's a press conference where Newsom's promoting passing these laws, which basically make it in California so that you could only carry a firearm on some sidewalks, not all sidewalks, some sidewalks and in streets, but not if there's a protest.
To remove the word may and insert the word shall. Shall provide this right, as they assert. To remove the...
Yeah. What he's talking about is the Bruin ruling, which said that you cannot have these may issue concealed carry permits. He's like, now you shall issue it. If the person is otherwise qualified, you don't get to say, we don't think you've really got a right to carry a firearm, so we're not going to give it to you. It's like, no, if you meet all the requirements, you have to issue it. And here's him complaining about it. And what if Alex Priddy had been in a red state and was a known leftist? Would the red state, would Gavin Newsom, we won't give a gun license to him. Odious. This is The View. Probably one of the worst shows on television. It was occasionally tolerable when Barbara Walters was still alive and on it. It's not anymore. But let's hear what The View has to say about this situation.
And the birth of the Second Amendment was about the people being able to protect themselves in case the government was to turn on them.
It's for this very exact
Yes.
thing.
So exactly what's happening right now. That's not. I'm guessing he carries this wherever he goes, whatever. But this is a prime example of what people were allowed to protect themselves against, was to carry that weapon. So it wasn't something you even saw him handle, which is the perfect example to prove the point.
Clip from the Media Research Center. You go back. These people have been saying, "Oh, tyrannical government. That's the militia. You guys, no, you don't get to carry that for yourself because tyrannical government." Sudden newfound respect for probably the primary reason for the Second Amendment. Now, not before. Now. Wow, not impressed. Totally not impressed. But what do you expect? We will move on. That was the newfound respect for the Second Amendment section of our show. This is the dangerous rhetoric section of the show. Governor Tim Walz, and geez, that's an unfortunate kind of sign language thing right there that I've captured at the screenshot at the beginning of the video. Tim Walz is out there, and this is response to a question. I cut the question off because it's really difficult to hear. The mic's not on the questioner. If he talked with the White House, and if there was any indication that they would be pulling ICE and Border Patrol out of Minnesota. And here is Walz's response.
Well, I spoke twice this morning, shortly after I received the call of this shooting. I spoke with the President's Chief of Staff, and first request was to get her people out of there, to get these federal agents out of there. They were going to cause more chaos. And second call is, with no uncertain terms, that we will investigate this. We will not be stonewalled. What we've already seen, and you saw it this morning, before any investigation is done, you have the most powerful people in the federal government spinning stories and putting up pictures, and unrelated people who we don't know anything about, and a picture of a firearm to try and spin a narrative. And I ask Americans, this will end when enough Americans say this will end. Do I have any confidence Donald Trump will do the right thing? No, I don't have a lot of confidence Donald Trump will do the right thing. I do have a lot of confidence that the majority of the American people will do the right thing. And I think there cannot be very many people across this country looking right now, after all the reporting that's been done, after everything that's been said, under the pretense that they are here about immigration reform, and quit referring to these people as law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. We have law enforcement who do an
They aren't law enforcement? They are law enforcement. You may not like them. I may not like, some of the garbage they're doing. But they're enforcing federal law. And you don't seem to be that interested in turning over to the federal government people who have deportation orders against them, or people who've committed crimes, or people accused of crimes. But now they're not law enforcement, so I guess we can shoot them. I mean, that's what the suggestion is. That's what he's been saying for he's likened them to the Gestapo. Can you shoot the Gestapo? Yes, you should shoot the Gestapo. You should. I mean, I'm reminded of Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. Yeah, kill them, because they're Gestapo. I'm all for killing Nazis. The problem is the other side sees Nazis where they see their political opponents, who are still Americans and who aren't all rounding up and killing Jews. It's not happening. We have the State Attorney General of Washington. This is courtesy of Jonathan Cho of the Discovery Institute. who captured this video. I think it comes originally from kind of the Washington State equivalent of C-SPAN. But here's the Attorney General of the state of Washington, Nick Brown. Let's hear what he's got to say.
State and local law enforcement do not have to simply watch or look away if the law is being violated. If they see somebody being assaulted unlawfully or attacked unlawfully or otherwise having their legal rights violated, we do not expect state and local officers to simply watch or do nothing. It is important that each of those jurisdictions talk to their lawyers and legal teams, understand where those lines are drawn, and after an incident, the lines of investigative authority or prosecutorial authority can be very challenging to navigate. But I think the Washington public expects their local sheriff or local police chief or officers that work for either to not simply watch if somebody in their community is having their rights violated. We hope we're not ever in that circumstance in Washington State, but I think as a general matter, that is the expectation, if not the duty, that we would anticipate our local forces having.
You want cops to step in when federal agents are arresting someone if they think rights are being... This would not end well, ladies and gentlemen. It would not end well. It's again, these are not smart. And suggesting these things, frankly, get more people, create more violence. I mean, it's one thing. Hey, you should record them. Don't get in their way. Stand back. Record what they're doing. All for that. That's not what's being suggested here. I mentioned Ice Watch back with the Renee Good shooting and some of the advice that they were given, which is bad advice, which will get people. And that's the other thing. Here you got a state attorney general, you got the governor of the state of Minnesota, and they're all kind of, and they're get out there, get in their face. I think there was a statement or a video or whatnot from the lieutenant governor of Minnesota saying, use your bodies to stop them. All these people suggesting this, they aren't the ones getting out there and getting killed or assaulted or beaten or pepper sprayed. Now, oh yeah, go do that. No, they've all got security details. They're causing the problem. Again, I mentioned Ice Watch. They found some online, some instructions. This instructions from Ice Watch is designed to try and create a blue-on-blue shooting situation. It says up here, if you want a police response, it is straightforward to describe what has happened to 911 without saying ICE or immigration, because if you say ICE or immigration, they may not come. Instead, what you say is, there's two armed men in a vehicle and they're getting ready to hurt or attack someone. Or there's a black Chevy Trailblazer SUV with Minnesota license plate, blah, is driving erratically the wrong way down a one-way and almost hit someone. There's an abduction happening right now. They're taking her and they have guns. I'm afraid that I'm being pulled over by someone pretending to be a cop. I'm coming to the precinct because I don't think these are police who are trying to pull me over. I'm surrounded by 3 cars. They're waving guns at me and screaming. They're trying to get police to roll up on a volatile situation that they are probably creating, and hoping that some trigger-happy cop shoots a trigger-happy federal agent, or vice versa. This is not an example of lowering the volume, of lowering the tension. This is upping it. And It's not something you want them to be doing. Then you get this from Jake Tapper. I'm not sure. This guy is a bookstore owner. Okay. I don't know what you can say. I don't know what prompts him to have an economic blackout to protest ICE. I'm not sure about the wisdom of having this guy on, Mr. Tapper. I'm sorry. I think I'm not sure if your producer pre-interviewed him to see what he was going to say, or what happened here. But this is not what you want to have on your air, and you should probably disavow it immediately, and realize that you have invited a crazy person onto your air. Listen,
I understand that, but they take people to Fort Snelling here, which literally was built as a concentration camp, and Alligator Alcatraz, which I think we can all agree is a concentration camp. I'm not saying they're Dachau. I'm not saying they're putting people in ovens yet, but these are concentration camps.
Okay.
I don't need to argue with you about that.
Yeah. Not good. As you do, this is making it worse. But let's continue on the concentration camp thing. Here is Governor Walz again, likening ICE, Border Patrol, federal immigration agents to Nazis.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota.
I'm not sure about the market for that story, because you're not lowering the temperature. This does not lower the temperature. This is some level of insane. The U.S. Holocaust Museum posted in response to this, comment from Walz, says Anne Frank was targeted and murdered solely because she was Jewish. Leaders making false equivalencies to her experience for political purposes is never acceptable. Despite tensions in Minneapolis, exploding the Holocaust is deeply offensive, especially as anti-Semitism surges. Thank you, U.S. Holocaust Museum, for stating the obvious. It would be nice if people would listen. Again, this is, you often get condemned for both sides-ism, but both sides are doing this. We started at the top of the show with the Trump administration on the right, you went there to, kill police officers and inflict maximum bullcrap. Horse pucky, as my father would say. And then you get this, this is the Gestapo. They are not law enforcement officers. We should, our cops should shoot them. It's going to get worse before it gets better, if it gets better. I mean, let's recall what's happening here is we have federal laws. They were not enforced under the previous administration. In fact, it's not just they were not enforced, they were ignored, they were made inoperable, they didn't like our immigration laws. There's a big push that they may shut down the government again because they want to defund ICE. It's like, well, if you're going to defund ICE, if you don't want these laws enforced, let's repeal the laws. Let's not play this game. Oh, we just want to defund it. No, let's repeal the immigration laws. You want to pass a law? Oh, they've been here 15 years and have only committed one felony. and so they get to stay. Or maybe that's too much. Let's have a debate. Oh, they've been here 20 years and only committed 2 misdemeanors and haven't killed anyone. They've just maimed one person because they drove drunk or something. Let's have that argument. That's normally how we do this. This idea of some of these blue states, it's like the feds are going to come in and we're going to order our cops to shoot them. The last time you had kind of feds coming in to enforce federal laws was the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s, mainly the 60s. But the ones taking on the feds weren't the good guys. Not a good season, not a good situation. Again, if you want to hear more, if you want to call and talk to me, I'll be on Dave Collins' show tonight. 920kvec.com. Go there on your browser. There's a listen live link at the top. You can click on that. Dave's a good egg. He's not a conservative. He's a liberal. He's a classic liberal. He's an open-minded guy. He is not a hateful guy. He's not like these Air America or whatever they're called nowadays, the Media's Touch guys. He's open to both sides. We disagree sometimes. We disagree a lot of the time. He's a good egg. Is Craig Hill with him? Craig and I agree a lot more than Dave and I do. But if you got questions, please come and watch that. 4 p.m., 4:02 p.m. Pacific time today, January 27th, 2026. Thanks for joining me. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, tell other friends, subscribe to my Substack, subscribe to Twitter. Just like to grow this. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.